dramatic music tanks rumbling the Golan Heights. A rugged stretch of rocky hills along the Israeli-Syrian border became a deadly battlefield in 1973. A place where strategy, courage, and sheer survival intertwined. This land, fiercely contested and of immense strategic value, had long been claimed by Syria, and the country refused to concede any part of it, determined to reclaim what it considered its rightful territory. On the Israeli side, a small contingent of lightly prepared tank crews faced the impossible. Confronting over 12,000 Syrian tanks, advancing with overwhelming force, from horizon to horizon, the Syrian army surged across the terrain, turning the landscape into a war zone, with artillery booming, explosions rocking the ground, and smoke rising across the hills. The fighting was merciless. Neither side yielded, and the stakes could not have been higher. The Golan Heights, encompassing 12,000 square kilometers, held a volcanic, barren terrain that had been under Israeli occupation since the Six-Day Arab-Israeli War of 1967. Both nations claimed it, but in the fall of 1973, the border dispute erupted into a sudden and bloody conflict. On October 6th, Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, most Israelis observed fasting and prayer, leaving the frontier lightly defended. Lieutenant Colonel Yair Nafshi, commanding the 74th Israeli Tank Battalion, began a routine patrol to monitor the front. At noon, an urgent report from a commander at the Herman post revealed that Syrian forces were removing camouflage nets from their artillery, signaling imminent action. Acting instinctively, Nafshi gathered his men, prepared their tanks, and minutes later the bombardment began, with shells raining down and Syrian aircraft striking from the skies. The attack had been planned for 9 months, and while Israeli intelligence had noticed some troop movements, the scale of the offensive was a complete shock to frontline soldiers. The Syrians had repeatedly advanced and withdrawn in earlier exercises to lull Israel into complacency, but on this day, they held their positions and unleashed the full weight of their forces. Israel, though small, had perfected rapid mobilization, and their strategy in the initial moments was to inflict maximum damage before engaging the full Israeli army. At the Golan Heights, fewer than 6,000 Israeli infantry, 60 artillery pieces, and 2 armored brigades with around 170 tanks faced a Syrian force of more than 50,000 troops, 600 artillery units, and over 1,200 tanks, a disparity that seemed insurmountable. Despite these odds, Israeli crews, armed with shot-cal tanks boasting 152 millimeters of frontal armor and 105 millimeter cannons capable of striking beyond 3,600 meters, exploited superior long-range firepower to devastating effect. The Syrians advanced in waves of T-55 tanks, countless times rehearsing their attack. Yet logistical errors forced many into anti-tank trenches, rendering them vulnerable to precise Israeli fire. Night combat introduced additional challenges, with Syrian T-55s equipped with infrared projectors, allowing detection up to 1,200 meters, while Israeli crews relied on night vision binoculars to maneuver and counter it. The battle unfolded in a chaotic blur, tanks intermingling, artillery explosions surrounding them, and every decision carrying life or death consequences. After 18 hours of relentless engagement, the 74th and 77th Israeli battalions had held the northern front, but at immense cost. 75 tanks destroyed and hundreds of soldiers lost, while Syrian casualties and equipment losses were higher still. In the south, the Syrian offensive initially succeeded, pushing through thinned Israeli defenses and threatening strategic bridges over the Jordan River. Israeli reservists, mobilized in just 10 hours instead of the expected 20, arrived overnight, hastily organized and committed to the fight. By dawn on October 7th, the first Israeli reinforcements reached the Golan Heights, advancing under fire and immediately engaging the enemy. The flat terrain in southern sectors forced careful maneuvering, with Israeli crews firing in short, controlled bursts, constantly repositioning to avoid becoming stationary targets. Syrian T-62 tanks, upgraded from the T-55 with enhanced armor and larger main guns, posed a significant threat. Yet the Israelis exploited terrain advantages, elevation, and superior gunnery skills to neutralize their advances. At the El Al plateau, open fields left advancing tanks exposed, and Israeli crews employed highly coordinated maneuvers to maximize long-range effectiveness while minimizing risk. In the north, the Valley of Tears became the epicenter of intense combat, with the elite 7th Israeli Armored Brigade facing the Syrian 7th Infantry Division. Outnumbered nearly 7-1, Israeli crews relied on precision, mobility, and elevated firing positions to halt the advancing Syrian tanks. Small Israeli contingents in the south slowed the enemy's approach to the Sea of Galilee, controlling key positions along canyons and hills. By October 9th, Israeli forces at Hush, a small village in southern Golan, engaged in one of history's largest armored confrontations, facing over 250 Syrian tanks in a fiery and chaotic battle. Israeli crews advanced under relentless artillery and air bombardment, through blazing villages, constantly adjusting fire and position, turning the inferno into a controlled battlefield. By afternoon, over 200 Syrian tanks had been destroyed, with Israelis retaking much of southern Golan, while the Valley of Tears continued to witness some of the fiercest and closest engagements of the war. Israeli tactics, constant movement, short-range firing, and precise targeting proved decisive against Syrian forces that often advanced in rigid formations, unable to maneuver effectively. In the north, 6 Israeli tanks alone held critical positions on reverse slopes, waiting for Syrian armor to crest the hills, opening fire at close range, and successfully halting the enemy advance. Throughout the conflict, every engagement was a test of skill, courage, and tactical thinking. The war concluded with Syria's failure to reclaim the Golan Heights, Israeli counteroffensives pushing into Syrian territory, and eventual Syrian withdrawal by October 23rd. The 1973 war lasted just 16 days, but became one of the deadliest armored conflicts in modern history. Both sides suffered heavy losses. Israel lost between 400 to 500 tanks, Syria between 1,200 to 2,200, with over 21,000 soldiers killed and tens of thousands wounded. The Golan Heights remains a symbol of strategic importance, fierce defense, and the enormous human cost of war, remembered for the bravery, sacrifice, and determination of all who fought. The conflict, though brief, reshaped military tactics, highlighted the value of preparation and rapid mobilization, and left an enduring legacy in the region.